It's nice to be back among you. I spent 1 year, Mr. Secretary General, with the World Jewish Congress, not many years. I really want to wish you success in your new position. And one word of criticism. This issue merits a much more serious debate, a much more serious discussion of what it implies to all of us here in this room, and how will it affect our work in the World Jewish, or your work in the, I'm still used to say our, but in the World Jewish Congress. Because to continue what my two predecessors at the podium said, if you take the view from Iran and the view from Jerusalem, you may get two opposing assessments. And if this is the case, then I think that our situation as Jews and Israelis, for at least the short and medium term, is not bright. If you look at the balance from Tehran, you see the weakening of pro-Western regimes in Bahrain, in Jordan, in Tunis, in Oman, and that's not boding well for the West, quote-unquote, and for Israel. In the Gulf, and I had an opportunity to visit Oman about 2 months ago, there is a great anger at the United States because of the speed at which they dropped Mubarak, an ally of 30 years. There is a visible weak reaction by the West, quote-unquote, to what happens in the Arab world, both militarily and economically. And that's not very good for us. It's very good for Iran. There is a limited military reaction against Libya, but there is an almost equal number of casualties in the streets of Damascus and other cities in Syria, and the West fails to react. And it's bad from the possible falling of the regime in Syria is bad from the Iranian point of view. But when they analyze the West's reaction to Libya on the one hand and Syria on the other hand, they might draw a lot of courage. And as Sima said, and rightly so, the Iranians continue under this gloss of uncertainty and unpredictability to develop their nuclear program. And nobody really puts a stop to it, or even attempts to do this. The sanctions do whatever they can do, but it's a limited weapon. Not only that, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, estimates that the economies of the region, especially those which do not produce oil and gas, they will need in the next 3 years $160 billion. I quote again, $160 billion. I looked at it. The West and the oil-producing countries in the region have come up with less than $10 billion up to now. So there is the seed there for continuous malaise, continuous resentment in the streets against the regimes there, and that's not very good for Israel or the West, quote-unquote, but it's very good for Iran. Because with these conditions, this is how the Iranian can manipulate and penetrate the streets, even of Sunni societies. And so when you look at the enormous problems that both Europe and the United States are engaged with, they need another $160 billion to salvage Greece. And who knows how much will be needed for Portugal, and who knows how much will be needed if Spain or another European major country is on the line. And all of this is seen with glee, I think, in Tehran, and cannot be seen but as a worrying developments in the region, looked at it from the point of view of Israel. Now, I also think that at the same time, in the long run, if all these revolutions do succeed, or uprising as you call them, they are not yet revolutions, in the long run, an open society, a society where each individual can make a judgment for himself and not get the word from the mosque or from the government officers what to think and what to say, in the long run, this is a great development from Israel's point of view. But this is in the long run, and I just pointed to the weakness of the West to come up with the resources that will make sure that this really happens. And I'm not sure that the West in the next few years will be capable, including the oil-producing countries in the Middle East, to come up with the appropriate result, both the political, if necessary, the military, and certainly the economic one. Now, there's also another positive, or maybe positive element. In my view, the spark which created the uprising in the Arab world was not came out in Tunis. It came out in Iran, in the uprising of hundreds of thousands of people who went to the streets in June 2009 during the elections. And millions of Arabs could watch on television what the Iranians did in order to protest against the regime. That was the spark. And there is a possibility that it will come back to haunt the Iranians, and I think that this is what we should all encourage. The return of the spark, the Iranian spark, to the streets of Tehran. And if this happens, then there is a chance that the Iranian nuclear project could be halted. And I think that there is a real fear in Tehran, not of the sanctions, not of the military reaction, because they can see that there is no military reaction coming out or coming up against them, but through the resentments of the Iranians themselves against the regime. And this is what I think we should encourage. One last word about what it implies for Israel, beyond the things that I have already said. If you are the Prime Minister of Israel, and I'm not so sure that you really want to be the Prime Minister of Israel, facing all these serious difficulties, uncertainties, and unpredictabilities, you cannot take a decision with long-term implications, for example, on the issue of borders. I mentioned in passing Jordan. We all know the sensitivities there. We all know the problems there. And God forbid if something serious happens to the stability of the regime there. But if you are the Prime Minister of Israel, can you really and responsibly take a decision on the borders of Israel today? But to go back to what Sima said, our relations with the United States, and I don't have to say a lot about this, this is a cornerstone in our strategy. And we have to make an effort to maintain these relations, which means that we do need to cooperate with the United States in order to, A, stabilize the situation. We cannot influence the events in the Middle East elsewhere, but we can help remove this issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from the agenda of the Arab world. And there are things that the Israeli government can do. There are things that the Israeli government should do. I think that we are all part, you and us in Israel are part of the same decision shapers. We are not the decision makers. This is left for the Israeli government. But you should be part of the decision shapers, and you should express your views on this issue, because eventually it will influence the future of the Jewish people. I am once again wishing you success, Mr. Secretary General, and I have passed by 30 seconds my time. Thank you very much.